Imagine a horizon empty except for the endless blue. Then, without warning, an American aircraft carrier strike group appears off a foreign coast. 1,000 feet of floating steel, longer than 3 football fields, carrying 75 fighter jets, a small city of sailors, its own hospital, desalination plant, and enough fuel and ammunition to wage war for weeks. Within days, it can strike anywhere. It doesn't ask permission. It simply arrives. This is not raw military muscle. This is the hidden architecture of power. The invisible systems that let a nation project force across oceans and keep it there long enough to shape events. Population size, big armies, and advanced weapons matter, but they are not enough. True superpower status belongs to whoever can move, sustain, and protect that power better than anyone else. Today we're going to trace exactly how that architecture is built, from the stone roads of Rome to the treasure fleets of Spain, the coal depots of Britain, and the global carrier networks of America. You'll see the same timeless formula repeating across centuries: geography, infrastructure, logistics, speed, and the relentless compression of time and distance. Because the nation that masters distance doesn't just fight wars, it decides where and when they happen. Let's begin with the foundation every superpower must solve: geography. Geography is destiny, but only if you understand its rules. Nations with oceans on 2 sides, like the United States, Britain, and Japan at their peaks, enjoy a massive head start. Fewer land borders mean fewer directions to defend. Natural barriers, deep water, mountains, deserts turn invasion into a logistical nightmare for any enemy. Rome understood this. They pushed their frontiers to the Rhine and Danube rivers, the North African desert, and the Euphrates. Those weren't walls. They were force multipliers. Fewer attack corridors meant fewer troops needed to hold the line, freeing everything else for projection outward. Yet, geography alone never created a superpower. The real secret lies in what Kenneth Boulding called the loss of strength gradient. The farther you operate from home, the weaker you become. Every mile stretches your supply lines, delays reinforcements, and turns minor breakdowns into disasters. History's greatest powers didn't ignore this gradient, they flattened it. First stop, Rome. 2,000 years ago, a Roman general could plan a campaign with terrifying precision, not because Roman soldiers marched faster than anyone else, but because they arrived stronger and stayed longer. The empire built roughly 250,000 miles of road sati, 1,000 of them paved in stone. Way stations every 25 miles stocked food, fresh horses, and repair crews. Official couriers could cross the empire in days, not weeks. Grain moved cheaply by river and sea. Standardized contracts kept legions fed, and prepositioned warehouses turned distant theaters into extensions of Rome itself. This wasn't glamorous. It was boring, expensive, and brilliant. Enemies could still win battles, but they could rarely win campaigns. Rome didn't conquer through superior speed. It conquered by making distance predictable. Now fast forward to 1492. Spain unites the Iberian Peninsula, expels the last Moorish kingdom, and suddenly stares at an ocean full of possibility. But possibility is not power. The Atlantic is vast, stormy, and crawling with privateers. One storm or one ambush could erase years of profit. Spain's answer was the convoy system, perhaps the most sophisticated logistical machine the world had yet seen. Instead of scattering treasure ships across the sea, they sailed in massive, heavily guarded fleets on strict schedules. Warships escorted merchantmen. Ports in Havana, Veracruz, and Manila became choke points where silver, spices, and silk funneled into controlled arteries. The Manila galleons crossed the Pacific like clockwork. The Atlantic fleets synchronized with them. Taxes were collected in one place. Protection concentrated. Timing became power until it wasn't. On July 24th, 1715, a treasure fleet heavy with years of colonial wealth left Havana against the advice of captains who smelled hurricane season. 7 days later, a monstrous storm smashed 11 of 12 ships into the reefs off Florida. Over 1,000 sailors died in hours. The economic shock rippled back to Madrid and paid soldiers. Collapsing credit, opportunistic enemies. One storm exposed the fatal flaw of concentrated risk. Even the best system is only as strong as its weakest link. Britain learned the lesson and took it further. By the 18th century, Britain turned its small island into the nerve center of a global empire. The Industrial Revolution gave them steam. Steam gave them schedule. No longer did captains wait for favorable winds. Ships moved on timetables, but steamships needed coal mountains of at-hand coal stations, had to be placed exactly where they were needed. So Britain built the first truly planetary logistics grid. Gibraltar, Malta, Aden, Singapore, Hong Kong, Cape Town, Ascension Island, Jamaica. They seized the world's great maritime choke points, the narrow gates every ship must pass, control the Strait of Gibraltar, the Suez Canal, the Malacca Strait. And you control the arteries of global trade and war. They laid thousands of miles of undersea telegraph cables there, all red line, so orders from London could reach a fleet in the Indian Ocean in minutes instead of months. Time itself was compressed. Distance became manageable. Britain didn't just have the biggest navy. It had the best maintained, best supplied, fastest responding navy on Earth. And then came the United States. America's genius was turning an entire continent into a secure rear base. 2 oceans as moats. A vast internal market that could outproduce anyone. But the real leap was forward-deployed power that never quite looked like old-fashioned empire. Instead of colonies, America built a network of bases, alliances, and access agreements. Aircraft carriers became the ultimate expression of this new architecture. Mobile sovereign territory that needs no runway, permission from any host nation. A single carrier strike group is a self-contained ecosystem. Aviation fuel, spare parts, hospitals, machine shops, all moving at 30 knots. Heavy-lift aircraft and roll-on roll-off ships move entire armored brigades across oceans in days. Aerial refueling turns tactical fighters into strategic weapons. Satellites, secure data links, and joint doctrine turn thousands of separate units into one coordinated organism. This is power projection at its modern peak. Yet the same vulnerabilities remain. A carrier is a massive target. Precision missiles, submarines, cyber attacks, and anti-axis weapons are already trying to push those carriers farther offshore. The next evolution is already beginning. Drones, hypersonics, distributed logistics, space-based systems. The gradient never disappears. It only changes shape. So what is the timeless formula? Every superpower that has ever mattered solved the same 4 problems better than its rivals. 1. They used geography to reduce the number of threats they had to face at once. 2. They built infrastructure that flattened distance roads, convoys, coaling stations, bases, cables, satellites. 3. They mastered logistics so that force arrived stronger and stayed longer. 4. They compressed time-making decisions, movement, and sustainment faster than anyone else could react. Raw power is easy to see. The hidden architecture, the boring stuff of fuel depots, repair schedules, standardized parts, and choke point controls. What actually decides who shapes the world? History is littered with nations that had bigger populations, bigger armies, and bigger ambitions, but lost because they could not sustain what they projected. The winners were the ones who turned distance from an enemy into an ally. The 21st century will be no different. The next superpower will not be the one with the most missiles. It will be the one that can move, repair, resupply, and coordinate force anywhere on the planet faster, longer, and more reliably than anyone else. Because in the end, power is not what you have. Power is what you can deliver sustained, on time, exactly where it matters. And that delivery system, that invisible architecture, is what truly separates empires from all. The question is no longer who has the biggest stick. The question is who can swing it the farthest, the longest, and at the moment of their choosing. That is the hidden architecture of power, and it is being rebuilt right now, in real time, beneath the surface of the world we see every day.